start. So the reason that Lufthansa Cargo deployed a private cellular network was that they were having connectivity challenges. And what they did was they actually hired a consultant, which was Lufthansa Industry Solutions. And they came in and they did a study. And what they did was they checked their connectivity on Wi-Fi. They checked the connectivity on public cellular, and then they went in and they checked the connectivity if they were to have private cellular network. And hands down, it was so much better with the private cellular network. And so they really did that study first before implementing. And then they went in and they did a trial for 1 year. And some of the reasons that we're seeing, not only for Lufthansa Cargo, but just in general, as to the reason someone would deploy a private cellular network, is that the use cases that they're deploying today are not the same use cases that they were deploying 10 or 15 years ago. And really, Wi-Fi and public cellular were not made to be able to support these new and innovative solutions that are out there today. So specifically, we're seeing now automation of and digitalization of warehousing outside airports in these warehouses. And specifically, these use cases are requiring things like seamless mobility. So when things are in motion, we see that handoffs really fail when they're on such systems as Wi-Fi and then competing with the public cellular network. These need to be connected at all times. And so when they're in motion, those handoffs need to be seamless. If not, the experience is going to be very bad for the workers that are having to use these new applications. They're trying to be more productive, but they're going to be extremely frustrated if they're not connected all the time. So there's no room for not being connected. It's just not acceptable. The use cases won't work. The other thing that we're seeing is the flexibility of the network. And when I went to visit this warehouse, what I really understood was that it's a very dynamic environment. So the dynamic environment makes it so that it needs to be moved in some cases. And with a private cellular network, you have the flexibility to move that. So that's one of the other things, is that flexibility. And then the predictive latency. That's the other piece, is that there can't be any drag time. There can't be any lag. So that is the other scenario in which private cellular network really exceeds, hands down. And then security is another now aspect that we're seeing more and more. We're seeing cyber attacks and things of that nature. And so more and more, we're seeing the need to have that security be a factor, which with private cellular network and the SIM capabilities and to be able to secure that, that's the other reason for private cellular network. So that's kind of that described. Those are the most common reasons.
So the most important thing for us was in the past that digitalization and connectivity in the warehouse is not a new topic, right? So we have the digitalization and all that stuff since many years in the warehouse. But the thing was, and here is the big but that we always had in the past, was the connectivity issue, right? So we have a warehouse that's roughly covers 60,000 square feet in LAX, right? And we always had some problems with the connectivity when it comes to roaming in the warehouse, to move from one side of the warehouse to another warehouse, and with the blind spots. What this means for us in our operation, because we're moving a lot of freight in our warehouse in a really short time. So if we're talking, let's say, when a freighter comes in, we have a turnaround time of about 120 minutes to load and unload the freighter, right? And just to give you an example, so how much freight are we talking about? So at 777, so a standard freighter has a capacity on metric tonnage of about 150 tons. So that means we are moving in this 120 minutes close to 300 tons, metric tons maximum in 120 minutes. That means for us, we have a lot of movements in the warehouse. And as you can imagine, so we tried to have connectivity with Wi-Fi since many years. But as you know, when you roam between the Wi-Fi access points, so the problem was if you roam from one access point to another, you lose connectivity, especially when it comes to our main use case. We're using handheld devices in the warehouse to track the boxes in the warehouse and the freight. So, and they're heavily reliable on our internal applications. And because of the security reason, this connectivity is done via secure channels, and they are very time sensitive. So with that said, is when you have, let's say, a roaming time from more than a few hundred milliseconds, so you lose connectivity and you reestablish the connectivity. But here is the catch: if you use connectivity, you have to re-authenticate, and because if it's a security environment, you have to enter your credentials to get the connectivity back again. Which means when you drive on the forklift from point A to B and you lose connectivity, you have to stop and you have to enter your credentials to get the connectivity to your application back again. And you can imagine this costs a lot of overhead on our end on the processes, right? So, and what private 5G does for us is with the connectivity over the 60,000 square feet and more with the apron, 100,000 square feet and even more, we have one big cell, right, that covers the whole area. That means there is no roaming between them. We did our homework and measured a lot about on the process level, right? And what we saw is because of the connectivity and the reconnects and that we do not longer have these workarounds to write down the airwaybill numbers and papers and all that stuff, we saw an increase in the process time. So in the end-to-end process time, I'm not talking the time that is needed for the scanning, right? So I'm talking the whole process time. So we improved our process time to 80%, right? Which is a really great number, right? Because that we skipped the part with writing down the airwaybill number, go to a terminal, enter the airwaybill numbers by hand to transfer it into the system, right? And this leads to these impressive numbers. As I already pointed out in my introduction or one of the first questions, because the Wi-Fi was not the best solution for us, the level that we start from the acceptance level was pretty low, because we always had to convince our workers in the warehouse, our shop floor workers, to use the scanners, use the tablets. And because of the problems that we have with the Wi-Fi connectivity that I elaborated in one of the questions before, is that we have all this paper processes and these workarounds in place, right? And as soon as we had the private 5G and the connectivity in place, it was an instant acceptance, because the workers instantly showed their benefit, that we really helped them to speed up the processes and make their life easier, right? So from that standpoint, it was really easy for us, right? And the acceptance was more or less instant, right? To say, hey, it's working, it's so great, it's perfect for us. We can now use the tablets on the forklifts, which we cannot use in years before, right? And this leads to a highly rate of acceptance, right, in a really short period of time. So I'm talking not even weeks, I'm talking days, right? So as soon as we implemented it, and the day shift started operations, oh wow, finally it works, right? So it was not about how sophisticated this thing is, or because, you know, our shop floor workers are not technical guys in that sense. They are shop floor workers, right? And this was the important part for us. They're not interested what the technique and the technical specification, how fancy it is. No, what they really rely on is that it works. And the system did it from the first minute, to say it that way, right?
Some of the use cases that we see in warehouse and logistics more and more that you would see typically on a private cellular network. For Lufthansa Cargo, it was simply the scanners. I mean, it can be as simple as just connecting the scanners. That's one, but also we're seeing real-time data collection. And again, getting back to the reasons why someone would deploy a private cellular network, having the information in real time is one of the reasons why being connected is so important. So real-time data connection. We're also seeing the video and computer vision more and more coming into play. And I know it's a buzzword, but the artificial intelligence that are built into these cameras are mind-blowing in what we're seeing, and the recognition that they're able to do, and being able to see the scan and read and all of that, and then give you that information in real time. It's just very powerful as far as being efficient in a warehouse. And then we're seeing robotics used for the inventory and the picking, and the robots to be able to do that. We're seeing several companies have really good solutions that run over a private cellular network for that automated inventory. Predictive maintenance, to be able to know that the equipment is running and that there's no downtime, and that you're able to see it ahead of time and get alerts in real time before something can potentially break. And then the predictive logistics chain, that's another area in which we're seeing analytics come into play, and then that analytics in real time. So those are some of the use cases that we're seeing on top of the private cellular network in logistics and warehouses.
So, of course, we have a lot of strategies in place for our digitalization, and when it comes to that, currently we transferred the proof of concept from LAX to a productive environment, which is now up and running for more than a year, right? And from the perspective we're looking to, when I'm looking, I can only talk from the US perspective, right? Because we have this special case that we're using here, CBRS, the CBRS spectrum, which is only available in the US, right? When you look in Germany, they have a little bit of different regulation, so they have to buy the spectrum, and here in the US, we can more or less use it for, let's call it for free. It's not totally for free, but it's more or less free to use, right? So, and with that said, so we're looking into the possibility of implementing this in our big 4 warehouses that we run here in the US, in JFK, in Atlanta, and in Chicago. And we're currently evaluating the business case to implement it in the next phase in our JFK warehouse. So I talked a lot about the digitalization initiatives that we have at Lufthansa with different POCs that are already in place. So, and as I already pointed out, so to have all these new technologies in place, you need a stable base layer when it comes to transportation in sense of IP transportation and connectivity, right? So that means, so private 5G is the foundation for all that comes on top. When we are talking from a perspective, and you ask initiatives like AGVs or CCTV use cases with augmented reality, or AI use cases connected to CCTV, like automated dimension of freight and deliveries, incoming, outgoing freight detection, and all that stuff. But this all based on a secure layer of connectivity, on a reliable and secure layer of connectivity with the private 5G. And this aligns pretty well with our strategies for the future.